Welcome, everybody, to episode 13 of the Pavement Group podcast. Brian and I were just having an offline conversation talking about the lead up to the 2021 paving season. And we say, hey, why don't we share this? Because we were talking about some interesting stuff. So welcome back, Brian. How you doing, man?
Doing fantastic, brother. Good to be here with you.
Good to be here, too. Yeah, we decided to take our conversation online, share it with you guys, some of the stuff we're talking about. So let's get into it right here on episode 13 of the Pavement Group podcast. All right, welcome back. Well, this is a fun one. We don't have a guest today. We've got some cool stuff lined up for the next couple of weeks, though. So, some guests that we have coming on, continuing on our green theme that we were talking about, and some other cool people from our industry. But Brian and I were just talking offline. We're obviously, we're both up in the Northeast, or you're kind of, I guess, Midwest, but our season is about to kick off regionally. March is always kind of the start of the season. Towards the end of March, beginning of April, the asphalt plants start opening up. Our customers are starting to really get out there and look at their parking lots. And we were talking about just how different this year is going to be. And we wanted to share some of what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we really believe it's going to look like. 2020, obviously, weird year. That was a very strange one. 2021, though, I think is not going to be without its own challenges and uniqueness for many reasons. So that's what we kind of wanted to talk about. So, Brian, again, welcome back. I'm glad we took this conversation online, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it's good to give people kind of an inside look at some of the conversations that we have. And this one is one that's unique, right? And I think that, maybe people were thinking some of the things that we were starting to talk about before we decided to jump on here. But to go through the list and to give, both the contractor side and the client side, just put some light to a little bit of that stuff, I think will be helpful for people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I'll ask you first, because we were just talking about with specifically the 2021 and how a lot of work didn't get done last year. It didn't go away, and we're grateful for that as contractors, that all these projects were delayed, not canceled. How do you see that impacting people from a global standpoint? How do you see that having an impact this year?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things there, man. I think, several of our larger customers have said to us, like, they feel like they have 2 years worth of work to get done in 1 year.
Yeah.
We kind of assume that. We know how many projects got delayed last year or put on hold, as you just said. And, so as we get into this year, I think, the important thing to recognize is that with that said, there's not any more contractors available to be producing that work, right? So, like,
sure,
we're going to be definitely pressed in the season, and so what we've been telling our customers is the sooner that we get started, the better, right? Because from the standpoint of, we just want to make sure that we're as productive as possible for them throughout the entire season, so we're not getting to the September, October timeframe and not becoming kind of a all in couple of months there where we're just overwhelmed with the amount of work that we have to try and get done. And it becomes a capacity issue where, customers are waiting until the last minute to get some of that stuff done, which always happens. But
people are conditioned to that, though, right? The September, October rush. But you're saying, hey, prepare for that in May.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do, and it's not a sales tactic by any means. It's just letting people know, like, the sooner that we get started on some of this stuff, the easier it is to balance, the season on both sides, right? From the customer standpoint and from our standpoint. And so that's a win-win all the way around to be able to get some of this stuff started. Because, like you said, a lot of times people don't start looking at their parking lots until it's really nice outside and they can get the opportunity to go walk around them and get started taking a peek at them. And so, for those customers of ours that might be listening or watching, we of course are out in front of that for a lot of them, doing assessments and providing them with the detail. But if anybody needs that kind of help, reach out to your paving contractor or reach out to us. And, we're happy to be that resource for you to get some eyes on it and get you some data that allows you to make these decisions and get things started as soon as possible. Because I think, that's one of the things we've been talking about pretty regularly is that, this season is going to have its own unique set of challenges. And that's going to be one of them is, how do we deal with, the capacity of, those budgets that were maybe delayed last year or put on hold that are being carried over. And so whether it's 50% more work or double the work of last year, in some cases for our customers, it will present its own unique challenge this year for sure.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And we didn't see, this time last year, the world was shutting down. We're going to lockdown, unprecedented, weird, all that stuff. But people put a pause on things because they didn't know what was going to happen. And maybe it was, 60 days or whatever. I know in the Northeast, before we got back to construction, a lot of paving companies were delayed with their start. That really kind of choked things up. And we saw capacity issues during the summer last year, which, again, nobody knew what was going to happen. It was very surprising. So you're saying, that's going to be kind of maybe times two this year because those projects that got missed, say March through May, are slated back in there. They didn't necessarily get pushed because there was other projects that had to happen. And most of our clients, and I think most businesses out there, when you're talking about capital spend, work quarterly, right? And in most parts of the country, you're not getting into your outdoor spend and capital projects until the second quarter. So that's great info, I think, for people to start thinking about, property managers and contractors. How you're going to manage that potential overflow? How are you going to get creative about scheduling things and taking on this massive amount of work that might come at you early in the season?
Yeah, and I think from the customer standpoint, it's great for them to understand, that early in the season, there is in some cases a lack of work. It's like every contractor wants to get started and wants to get in that rhythm, and so the sooner that we get some of those projects, because we all have work to do early in the season. But it's, could we balance some of those larger projects that we typically experience in the back half of the year? Could we bump those up and it makes it easier for everybody, right? Because I'm assuming that on the property and facility manager side or the property owner side, that they experience the same thing, right? They get to the back half of the year and they say, oh man, we got to get this project, and this project done. And so it creates a lot of pressure on their end too. And so if we balance that, we start looking at it. For the customers out there, you put those things in front of paving contractors, typically you're probably going to get better pricing as well, right? Early in the season.
Sure.
Versus at the end of the season when there's capacity problems or contractors, you may have less of a selection of contractors as well, because some people's seasons might be booked up at that point. So the more that they balance it this year, in that, like you're saying, April, May, June timeframe, you bump some stuff up to April, May, June, and even into early July. I think, you're going to have a better balance to the year and a better experience. And I think, honestly, if it's played right, we can do double the number of projects without a whole lot of complication, right? But if we try to do double at the same time frame, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, that compression really would be difficult to deal with. So, well, you mentioned cost as well and cost savings. That's the other thing we were talking about. It's no secret that gasoline's going up. So people always ask us, when you're in the asphalt world, what's going up with a pump? Is asphalt going to go up? And it's not that direct of a correlation, but asphalt is a derivative of the petroleum making process. So eventually it does catch up. But really, gas is going up because there's demand now, right? There can't be a supply issue. I can't imagine. So many people weren't driving and flying and all that sort of stuff for a while. So it's got to be a demand issue. All right, we can make some money back here in the marketplace because people are starting to get on the road again right before, Memorial Day is coming up. So we'll start taking it up and then all of a sudden you're paying $4 a gallon there. We will see that in the fall, I believe. And again, not to be like doom and gloom or scary. I think this is going to be a wonderful year for construction. I think it's going to be a wonderful year to get back to some normalcy and all that sort of stuff. Very much looking forward to 2021. But in practical terms, you got to talk about that. It's got to eventually catch up because it always does. And it's not just the cost of materials, right? It's not just the raw material cost. It's the cost of logistics, of getting the asphalt to the job, of getting the liquid asphalt to the plants, of getting that to the distribution centers, all that sort of stuff. So that will come into play when you're looking at pricing and, you're in a budget conscious mode, which everybody is. The fall's probably going to tick up a bit. Would you agree with that, Bri?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that you always hear people talking about when it comes to the economy and simple economics is they usually start judging the economy based on the trucking industry, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
sure.
because the more things are moving around and whatever the cost of that is a great indicator as to how the economy is rolling. And so, as we get into this season, as you're saying, there's some fluctuation there. And I think it's, we're talking about demand issues, supply and demand issues within our own industry. And so that stuff rolls into the cost. So suppliers, having to truck in all of the materials that it takes to produce asphalt, and what is the cost of that? And then, the supply and demand, can they keep up? Because that's also a fluctuator of what the cost looks like, right? When they're,
Right on. Yeah.
they're unable to keep up, they typically raise the cost to reduce the demand, right? So they want to pull back on that demand a little bit by increasing the cost and maybe making people reconsider whether they do projects or not, right? Maybe they push them to the next year. And so they can control that demand a little bit by fluctuating their costs. And so as there's massive demand on these things, typically the cost will bump up a little bit. And you made a great point, man. It's all connected to transportation as well. So it's not just the cost of petroleum or the cost of asphalt. It's all interconnected. And so as we get into this year, I do agree with you. I think we'll see, I don't know how significant it'll be, but I think we'll see some increasing in pricing. And we've seen some of that already on some of the supplies that we're purchasing. So,
yeah. No, definitely. Well, there's manufacturing shortages as well with the equipment that, you think of the major materials as your seal coat, your concrete, your asphalt. There's a lot of equipment that goes into this too, like the crack fill spreaders and the spray bars and all the components, the paving equipment itself. And manufacturing's been hit hard, especially in America. You see it across all different sectors, but the trickle down, which I think we'll really feel later on this year. And some guys that are trying to order new equipment might be feeling it now, but manufacturing for trucks was way off. The plants in Pennsylvania for how many things are manufactured? I mean, thousands and thousands of manufacturing companies. They were shut down for 2 months. And then they went back with these COVID protocols where they used to stand 3 feet apart on the assembly line. Now they had to be 6.5 feet apart, and everything changed. And then a plant got COVID and they shut down and they brought in new people. And it really, it's going to catch up. We're seeing that with a little bit of that trouble. So for contractors as well, getting well ahead of it. I mean, I assume that most guys have gotten their equipment and stuff at least ordered at this point for this season. But these are all things to keep kind of top of mind,
Yeah.
And that's why
we just ran into something yesterday with paint supply. So the whole freeze event that happened in Texas, there were paint manufacturing plants in Texas that were literally wiped out. Their materials got wiped out as a result of that. And so
really
these things happen all the time. Yeah. Literally the paint supplier that we were trying to purchase from had rations on traffic paint. And so, we had to make some arrangements and get some stuff shipped to a different location to be able to, make the job happen on time, because, the local supplier was unable to pull because this plant in Texas that supplied them was literally decimated. Like there was nothing left. They had to, start from scratch with a lot of their materials because they didn't have, things in place to prevent it from freezing. And so when paint freezes, it's completely useless. Right. So,
wow, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's all around us, man. So there's challenges and materials and challenges. And like you're saying, the demand and the catch up from last year, it's still catching up. Right. And so as life gets back to normal, those things are still shifting in that direction. And that's the case for a lot of things, man. I got a buddy that's building a house that can only there's 6 people allowed on his property at any given time working. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And it's, it's a big property, but they can only have 6 people on a construction site at one time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that'll slow things down. It's all these things. So this will be the year of getting back to normal. It's definitely not going to be a normal year the way we know it, though. We're still, obviously for many facets of our lives, we're still adjusting and figuring things out. So that's a couple of things that we wanted to share. Brian and I, as I said, we're having an offline conversation, said this is probably good info to share with the audience about why having a little bit more urgency this spring with your capital projects. Specifically, we know about the paving world, and we can share that with you. We think it's going to be important to try to sneak a couple more in and get on the top of the schedule if you can. It's really going to benefit you in the long run from a cost standpoint, from an efficiency with the contractors and getting these projects done, not having to wait until 2-3 months down the road or whatever. Any parting shots, Brian? Anything else you want to share that we didn't cover?
No, man. I look forward to a great season. We've had some great conversations with our customers. Everybody's kind of excited to be a little bit more back to normal this year, having a little bit more predictable of a year than we did last year. And excited, man. It's going to be a great year. Like you said, for the whole construction industry, I think it's going to be great. And, for those contractors that are out there listening, just do everything you can to capitalize early and often in the season, and, be sharing this message that we shared today with your customers, because it's real. It's not something that's going to be easy to deal with if we have that much more work on all of our plates. And so, keep cascading that message out. And I think it'll make it easier on everybody, including the customers.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said, man. Yeah. And I agree. I am really gigged up for 2021. I do think it's going to be that return to normalcy. Again, it's going to be a different year, but it's going to be that good feeling. It's incredible how much activity there is out there right now. And I was nervous. I didn't know how we were going to come out to shoot this year. And, but it's busy. It's popping. It's happening. This is a fun, exciting time of year. So I hope this was useful to some of our viewers out there. You know how to get a hold of Brian and I if you guys get any further questions about what we've been talking about and what we're thinking. Otherwise, thank you again for joining us on our quick hitter here, quick chat, episode 13 of the Pavement Group podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon.